This is another episode of gardening, beginning gardening with Nana. I was watching some of the other episodes on YouTube of gardening shows, and there's some that are very good. I guess the only thing that I'm trying to show you in this is just the very beginning, and also how to garden when you live somewhere where you don't have a well-stocked nursery. You just kind of have to buy what's on sale and kind of make do with planting a garden with what's available. If you recall, right now it's the 8th of April, so spring is starting in full. If you remember when I planted these tiny little impatiens, look how much they've already grown in just a couple of weeks. And I want to show you something else that has sprouted. This garden, when I lived here a long time ago, used to have this ground cover that's right here. And I've noted that some of it, and I think I've said this in a video, some of it is growing wild back in the forest behind the house. And so this has come up here, and I am going to let it kind of weave itself in with these flowers. When you have a ground cover, you can also still have flowers coming up through it, and it does help keep the other weeds out. So we're gonna walk around a little bit. I have done some work in the garden since I was last making a video. I did put down quite a bit of lawn fabric. As you see, there's some here that has actually already come back up because I haven't mulched it. I did buy a bunch of mulch, but I had to buy I need a lot more than I thought I did. I want to keep some of the plantings open because there's a lot of things that that are still haven't come up yet. For instance, these hostas are just now coming up. Show you them. There's several, but there's even more that haven't come up. I also planted some more impatiens, as you can see them here, and those will grow up with the hostas. They both like shade. One thing I have done is I've tried to mark off in a natural way the garden, and what I decided to do was to take some loropa or monkey grass that needed thinning, and I have put it all along the garden here, as you can kind of see. Now I know it doesn't look like much now, but as the summer grows, then it will get thicker and it will make a natural path, because I did not want to outline this big garden with anything like stones. I just wanted it to stay more natural for a country garden. I'm very pleased. I planted these Tough Stuff hydrangeas at the end of last spring, and they're coming back. They're looking very good. I just bought a couple of these gardenias. They like shady location. I put these in my husband. This is my husband's favorite. He just thinks this is so smart of me, and of course I've stolen the idea from others, where you have a pot that is got a flat side, and you just plant it, and then you make it look like it's spilled out onto the garden. There are a couple of things that come up here naturally, and I do want to always remind you is when you start your garden, make use of some of the things that are there naturally. I had a kind of a little grove of these nandinas I showed you on the first video. I had a vole, which is a mouse that tunnels underground and eats the roots, and I don't like voles at all, and so I have been trying to get rid of them. But anyway, I still have some nandinas that came up just in the garden naturally. My roses, I've got lots of, let me show you here. They've got lots of blooms on them. They're not blooming out yet, but it won't be long. This one's just full of little tiny blooms. This one is a pink one, and the other ones are red. I did plant some lantana. Lantana is a perennial. It's not considered a very oh, I don't know. It's kind of the the poor cousin of other perennials. In here, I've got a bunch of this stuff that's coming up. It comes up all over the garden. I know it has a taproot that makes it come up other places, but it does make a pretty greenery. And I've got some peonies. That's a peony coming up, and then there's a littler peony over in the corner coming up, and I planted just a few. I had just a few of these petunias left over, so I planted them. As you can see, I still need quite a bit more mulch. I haven't covered all my yard fabric. Here's some more roses that have planted. I did plant some marigolds because as you can see, this is kind of a forest here back here, and I want to keep the mosquitoes out, so I planted a little line of marigolds, hoping that would give some help, because they do not like marigold smell. As you can see, my spirea is still in bloom. It's not as full as it once was, but it still looks very pretty, I think. And this is something I had planted several years ago that when I left, it still continued to, it's amazing, but it continued to thrive. So spirea, that's a hardy plant. My husband, when he made my path, which I just love this little garden path, he had to cut back a couple of variegated bushes. These are Japanese privet hedges, and we have all these around the deck, and so I'll be glad when they come back out because they're very pretty. I also planted down here, as you can see, some cannas. They're coming up, just a few of them. It's still early spring. And I noticed this morning that in addition to the cannas, that some of my hollyhocks are beginning to push up. At least I think these are hollyhocks. I've never planted hollyhocks before. As you can see, here's all that vinca here that's growing in the woods here that I can use later on as a cover. Oh, there's a rabbit. Did you see the rabbit? Anyway, I think this is a hollyhock. They're coming up here, and then let me see if I can let you see that bunny. You know, bunnies are so cute and sweet, but they eat your hostas leaves, and so I have mixed emotions with bunnies. I think he's scattered on. Anyway, here's lilies coming up, and I have done a little bit of planting with some things that have a little show. I put in a bunch of seeds here and here for some purple coneflowers, but I don't know if I'm going to get any of them or not. I took the ground, the protection away from them, I think, a little too soon. But behind them I put some yellow coreopsis, and that will spread. And here are some bellflowers and some more coreopsis, and these two pink flowers here that I just put in are Gauva, G-A-U-V-A, and all these like sun, and they're all perennials, so we're hoping that we're going to have some luck here. These are some freesia that I planted there from bulbs, and I hope that they will start blooming soon. Back here, these are all allium, the purple globe allium, and I'll be anxious to see those. I also have some daisies planted here. Here's another thing for you to consider. I got some of these daisies for only $1. These daisies are perennial flowers, and lots of times at your garden centers, once the first blooms have gotten kind of straggly or they've kind of spent, they'll put those on clearance for just a little bit of money, and that is a good bargain because these daisies, these are Shasta daisies, and they are perennials, which means they'll be back year after year after year, but they'll even bloom. These are the two that I got for $1. As you can see, I've cut off all the blooms on that one, but one kind of sad one. But those those blooms will come back. They're not finished blooming for the summer, so they'll come back. And here's another one I bought for $1. So that's something, if you're on a budget like I am, you might want to look for at your garden store, are things that are perennials that are marked down. So that's the tour for April the 8th. And things are looking pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with the way things are going. I did plant a bunch of bulbs, some anemone or windflower, and I don't know what they look like when they start growing. So essentially I've got kind of a ragged looking mess over here. I have for these daffodils, they're finished blooming. When you have your daffodils bloom, you have to leave the leaves up because the bulb will feed on those leaves, and you'll make more daffodils next year, and you'll make pretty daffodils. They'll come back year after year, but you have to leave the leaves up so they can use that for food. But anyway, in the middle where all these weeds are, there are windflowers or anemone. And so I'm going to have one season with it looking kind of scraggly like this, because I don't know what is weed and what is anemone. So I'm going to have to leave this alone. So that's basically it for this episode. I'm very happy now with the garden weeds kind of getting under control a little bit. My husband has moved our sprinklers where they're going to sprinkle right on the garden and keep it nice and watered, and so that's important. As I told you on our first episode, we have cut down some dead trees, and so we have a little more sunshine back here in the back garden, so I can grow a better variety of plants than I had at first. My husband has been so helpful. He has made me this garden path, which gives the garden structure, and he made benches and boxes to hold hanging baskets just to give the garden a little height. As you can see, other things that we have done right here, there's a stump, and this is just, just be a little bit ingenious. Instead of grinding that stump down, we put a planter on top of it, and that way you have height in your garden. You're always wanting to think about the garden in a variety of different ways. What's pretty now, what will be pretty later. Always have something of interest. Have something for spring, summer, fall, and even a little winter interest if you can. You also want some things higher and some things lower. You want to plant tall things in the back. When you have a garden like this that you kind of just walk around in, you don't have to worry about that so much. But if you have a garden up against the house, you put the tall things in the back and the short things in the front, of course. And you try to have the colors where they're complementary. Excuse me. And you want to have things where not too much work, not too much expense, because if you're spending a lot on your garden, you might be neglecting other things. And also, it's kind of like shopping for bargains. You want to shop for plants that are bargains, that are pretty, that are unusual, that give you a lot of lasting satisfaction. And as this garden grows, I hope to be able to share some cuttings with friends and take cuttings from their plants as well. Right now it's too early. There's too many things that are just barely taking root. But that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Beginning Gardening with Nana.